Hey everyone, Tactics here, bringing you guys another advanced Mythic Plus guide for Dragonflight Season 2, this time diving into Neltharus on a plus 20 fortified bolstering week where I'll go through the route that we use, discuss our pulls and boss strategies, and then hopefully help give you guys a better understanding of this dungeon to help time it on higher key levels. Reminder that this route is definitely not pug friendly, it's more targeted towards coordinated groups looking to push keys, but if you want something easier to execute, I have a bunch of routes kind of specific to that over on my channel, which I'll link down in the description below as well. Otherwise, let's hop into the dungeon here, which is at 1.25 times speed, just for brevity. And right off the bat here, we are going to do a pretty big pull over towards the Mammoth boss's side. In this first area, there's really not too many important kicks or stops here. Basically, what you're worried about as a tank is the tank buster from the Wardens. They have that big blazing slash there. That's a fire damage hit, so it can be pretty dangerous. Otherwise, just want to make sure you're sidestepping the frontals, and pretty much the brutal strikes are insignificant, and the only important kick and stop here is going to come from this thaumaturge we're going to grab in a second here. It is bolstering, so we wait for that second elemental to die, which, as they are bolstering, of course, we don't want to immediately bolster these guys, but we're fine now to pull in the rest of this pack. And basically the thaumaturge has a kick we want to keep on top of, as well as a stop in magma conflagration, so we put a stun over there on that. I think there is a little bug here from these guys right now, these wardens. They'll face a direction that isn't at the tank with the frontal, but then the frontal will snap back to the tank. So that's what you saw me almost die to there. So be aware of that. A bit of a visual issue with their frontal right now. They are always going to frontal at the tank. So note that even if they look like they're not going to hit the tank, just be aware they are going to shoot where you were. So make sure you still move away during that cast. Otherwise, though, it's literally just the one kick in Molten Core, Welders, or Elementals in this pack. You're going to see in our next pull, we're going to pull 2 Thaumaturges, but because we pull 0 or Elementals, there's actually 0 kicks, and there's only 2 stops in that pack. So that's pretty useful here. So you're going to see, I'm going to tap this left pack, someone's going to tap this right pack as well. And we do a double pull here with a bunch of Plunderers who aren't really too scary, too notable, and 2 Thaumaturges. So we have stops here for the Magma Conflagrations, and we're actually focusing those Thaumaturges because as soon as they're dead, and they do have a bit less health, so that makes it a little easier, we're just going to chain pull into the next pack because we're not going to have to worry about 3 kicks in the next pack, as there's only 1 in the next pack because the Thaumaturges are dead, right? So as soon as these Thaumaturges die, I'll rewind a little bit. They're going to start dying. Again, bolstering does not give health anymore, so it's really just a damage thing. So if you can live it, it's not a bad idea. This does get a little suspicious just because I'm running pretty low on defensive cooldowns in this pack. So we pull it all together. There's the Magma Conflagration there, which we stop, and then we're just going to get the kicks on the Thaumaturges, and we just want to make sure that we get the stop when it comes back up again in 5 seconds. These guys just kind of slowly walk in, but bolstering only doing the damage here. So there's the big knock and Ursul's huge tech. And we're going to slowly back up because as soon as you get to around here on the stairs, that's going to start triggering the RP for the Mammoth boss. So you want to try and trigger, there it is, before that happens. And this is where bolstering gets a little spooky, so I just back up. The only reason this becomes a problem is because of those Ore Elementals, right? Ore Elementals bolstering can make some packs where you're pulling a bunch of them, like this one in particular, a little bit sus. So I just stay out while the Giga Bolster Priest tries to kill me with a life grip. You know how it is. And then we're at the boss, so we're going to commit Bloodlust on this boss, because honestly, this is still probably the scariest boss. One of the scarier bosses and checks in this dungeon. So you can see where we're taking him here. Basically, just make sure you don't try and dodge your lava spray. One thing we could have done better here is bait puddles. So these puddles are always targeted at players, and of course, right after he does the charge. So that's something we could have done better. That's a good charge bait, though. We're going to get puddles over here, which is nice. And then we can just kind of move a little bit further. And this is where we'd want to reposition to be next to those old puddles to bait them over there. The real scary part, assuming you dodge everything, is this volatile eruption dot. The problem is later in the fight, it gets a 5 seconds added to its duration per tentacle stack, which will cap at 25 total seconds of the debuff. Note that the debuff procs every 5 seconds, so it's not like it's constantly ticking, it's just a big tick every 5 seconds. There are some neat things you can do, right? You can immune the application of the dot, things like spell warding. You can pop a spell warding on another player to let them avoid the entire dot, which is pretty nice, things like that. Otherwise, you just need to be aware that you're going to be taking a pretty big tick of damage every 5 seconds when this dot is out. As you can see, like it's not small, and especially on Tyrannical weeks last week, it was pretty scary. Otherwise, it's just a space thing. So like our bait there was kind of bad. I think ideally here we would bait that charge into a... Where is it? There it is. Ideally, we would bait that charge, I think, a little bit closer. So this is baiting that wall. That's fine. He spawns the puddles. It's just we lose some uptime pulling him out. But then the one after this... Oh, I just skipped it. We wanted to bait, I think, into this close wall here. And we end up baiting across. So that we lose a bunch of time. We fill the room up with extra fire puddles. Not ideal. It's fine because it's a fort week and we kill the boss relatively quickly. But we definitely would have wanted to bait, I think, into that close wall instead of the far one like we did. But not the end of the world because the boss is so low. We are just a little bit cut off in terms of space at this point now, waiting for the old fires to kind of despawn. I think the boss will take a big charge over there again at some point, but he's dead at this point, and this area is now open. The fire is despawned, but boss is dead. So even on a Tyrannical week, we would have had space to kind of move into after that. Here we just run across, set up a big pull, pulling all these phoenixes into the mini boss over here. The phoenixes don't really do much. I believe they also don't bolster, so it's not a big problem here. And we're just setting up this pack right here. Big pull onto the mini boss. I think we get hit by a spear here. Oh yeah, we get hit by a spear there. But otherwise, relatively simple pull. The one thing you want to be aware of on fort weeks, but in fort bolster weeks especially, is these hunter guys. If they ever get bolstered up because you're pulling a bunch of other stuff, that bleed they do can be pretty scary. You'll probably see it in a later pull, but otherwise relatively straightforward here. And we're going to go and do another big pull, and that's the good part about this area of the dungeon, kind of, I guess the whole entire dungeon really. You can just kind of do big pull into big pull into big pull here. So as soon as this dies, we don't want to bolster at the beginning of this next pull. We're going to immediately grab a hunter, I'm pretty sure, right? Yeah, so we're going to grab these guys, and we're just going to go set up another big pull. So we're going here, getting a bunch of phoenixes because they don't do anything, really. They're just kind of free count. A couple extra frontal guys. Be careful, there's going to be 3 trainees in this pull, which means there are 3 sets of frontals. And then we add the last hunter over there. And ideally, again, the tank always on this side of the pack. Everyone else always on the other side so that I'm not baiting frontals on top of them. One phoenix kind of flying up in the air. I don't think we even needed it for count, just... Why not? Again, they don't really do anything. They're kind of, anytime you see a Phoenix, it's kind of just free count. And basically just a big AoEs here. There's only 1 kick in the entire pack in this Bone Tender there. So just make sure you have the 1 kick on it. Otherwise, this is kind of the situation where you're a little scared of maybe bolstering up a Hunter a lot. If this guy gets a bleed off like that, that's a triple bleed. You see how hard that's ticking Dragon Nugget, right? That's a heavy, heavy bleed tick. So be aware. But luckily, it's a very short bleed duration, right? It's not long like the War Spears back in Noku Defensive. It's relatively short. So here, setting up another pull, big pull here. I believe there were some aggro problems on the initiation of this pull, which is why it kind of goes crazy here. But we'll get it set up. There are 2 kicks in this pack here. There's 2 Bone Tenders. Otherwise, you're just worried about the random jumps from the Hunters and then the random smacks from Bone Toss, which can be pretty scary as well when they're bolstered up. So those are the 2 guys you're somewhat worried about with bolster stacks, just the Bone Tenders Bone Toss and then the Hunters Jump Attack, whatever it's called. Otherwise, not too much to worry about in these packs. Point the frontals away, get the 1 kick on each Bone Tender, which you can also stop instead, and just kind of, you know, vibe out. Do some big pulls here. Do 350k damage, I guess. Moving forward here, we got the boss fight. Boss fight here. So the strategy that we found to be pretty successful, I don't actually think we do it here. So something you can do is you can insta-break one chain and then cross the other chains and do a double to break the phase very, very quickly. And then you have a 2 stack of the dot, which is ticking well, there's no other damage going out. That worked pretty well. There's probably going to be a key level where you can't do that because a double stack is too dangerous. And so what we kind of did here is just make sure that we just... people made their lines relatively long. You could definitely do it with more coordination. Like you could do them like triple drops here. Someone insta breaks on the bottom or the top, like just someone at an extreme insta breaks, and then the other 2 just make their line long, and the tank can just walk through them relatively quickly. But I do kind of like the cross thing because you can stack your defensives on it. And what you do in a comp like this, where we have 2 evokers, even if you only had 1 evoker and a paladin, you could easily bleed cleanse, dwarf, and bop all of the bleeds in all of the phases. So that would let you save defensive specifically for that double bleed here. So we're just going to insta break. I'm going to forget the boss jumps to me and stack this up immediately. And troll our healer a little bit. That's fine though. And then I'm going to insta break there. afterwards, but you wouldn't want to 2-stack immediately. That's the thing, because obviously there's so much damage, there's movement, there's swirlies, there's extra damage. 2-stacking at the beginning, not ideal. People die, as you saw right there. 2-stacking at the end when there's nothing else happening is something that is doable, especially if you plan for it and stack defensive. So again, what you can do is you can have 2 people cross their chains, and then you can have 1 person insta-break, and then the tank can just walk through the cross after the first dot dissipates, so that you're not going to triple stack, and then you can just do an insta double stack, and you end that phase so quickly. It's really nice. Like I mentioned, this bleed can be bopped, can be dwarfed, can be bleed cleansed by the dragon stuff, so it's pretty useful to get rid of if you have any of those things in your party. Dwarves are looking pretty nice this tier for sure, especially in this dungeon actually, because we'll get to the last boss at some point as well with that curse. But from there, it's just kind of rinse and repeat. That's a way to do single. If you want to do that, you do end up being in that kind of swirly dodge phase for longer, which is why maybe it is better to insta-break 1 and then do a double break just to get out of that, get to the damage and that kind of thing. But doesn't really matter, just be safe there. Summing up another big pull immediately out of this, because why not? Getting all these guys here with the Phoenixes. This is kind of more of a breather pull. This actually is relatively small. It's a double bone tender, so 2 kicks, but not much else to talk about. And then we set up a big pull here. So I just go for a bit of a run here. Aggro can be a bit of a problem, so make sure people are aware. There's the soup there if you want to grab it for speed between pulls. And basically I'm just grabbing literally all the guys here, all the sleeping guys, everything. We're going all the way to the stairs here, and we're pulling that sleeping guy over there. And then we're setting up the pull right here. Again, looking at what's in this pull, I believe there's 1 kick. There's 1 bone tender. So like all these pulls, really big. Phoenixes are kind of padding mob count a little bit, but outside of that, even the regular mobs, there's not a ton to be aware of. There's frontals, so be scared of that maybe. There's some random target damage, but there's really only 1 kick, right? 1, maybe 2 kicks depending on these pulls. So that's kind of why we've gone as big as we have, because there's not a lot to keep on top of in these pulls here, right? The first area, there was literally 1 mob. This area, there's also like 1 mob, so it's pretty nice for sure. Anyways, we go up on a run after this, all the way up the stairs. This is where you start getting into more kicks. So melts are random target hits, and they can just insta-gib someone. I think you're going to see someone get insta-gibbed here just by they all just synced up on the same target. So little unlucky, but it is what it is. This is where you start getting to the kick heavy part of the dungeon. You want to make sure that there's a kick or a stop on that Iron Torches cast because that is definitely the most deadly. And then all spare kicks are just going into the melt here. You can even leave that Iron Torch frontal. It is stoppable, but you can just instead commit a stop to that moat and then just dump all your kicks into melts because that's what's going to kill people, especially on these higher fort keys. And as you can see, they do bolster up the rest of the pack. Again, a much lower health mob that does bolster the pack, so just be aware of that. Yeah, it's because that's a 4 bolster, 1 tick of lava, basically. It just absolutely nukes him, so be aware of that. Moving to this next pull, make sure you have an AoE stop or 2 single target stops ready instantly because these guys will both begin to cast, and the Pierce Marrow cast is pretty spooky, so I have my stop ready. And then otherwise here, this is where the double melt. Yeah, that's the double melt sync up. Absolutely nukes. At this point, we don't have battle reses and we don't want to run back. This is a pretty nasty run back. So you are definitely not going to release here. You're just going to wait for the res. So that's what we do here. Otherwise, just dump stop from the bone splitters and dump kicks into the lava flares and you're kind of vibing. Especially at this point, double bolstered bone splitters are definitely going to be scary. So you're just getting the 1 kick on the Iron Torch and don't bother really stopping it. Stop the bone splitters instead because that's unavoidable damage. Whereas this frontal, you can just walk out of, right? Similarly, though, that axe is also a bleed. So you can bleed, dispel it, dwarf it, all that good stuff. We are going to step around here. This commander, nothing needed, just walk around him. He's a giant, you can just sidestep him. He's very healthy on fort weeks, and his abilities are unavoidable damage, which combined with some of the other stuff can be scary, so we just skip him. It's not that he's like inefficient or insanely dangerous, but you can't pull too much with him. So instead, we're going to do these guys. I'm going to just get the kicks on them real quick, and then we're going to chain them. Again, they are going to end up bolstering all these guys, which is a bit scary. I actually think it's the next pull, which is the most scary in terms of tank damage because of bolstering, because there's going to be 2 of those blacksmiths. And those blacksmiths are the insanely dangerous tank guys because of that bleed they put on, which isn't actually a bleed. I believe it's actually not dwarfable, which is the problem. It's a physical dot that's not considered a bleed, and that's reverberating slam. So it's a big hit, and then it's a nasty dot. And when they're bolstered up, it is pain. It is pain for sure. So you're going to see us. We're going to jump down after this pack. And we're going to group these 2 packs together here. And this is where bolstering gets me. So the 4 lava flares are going to bolster up the 2 blacksmiths who are going to stack up a tank buster on me. And I'm going to die. So this is definitely one where you need to be super careful on bolstering. Ideally, if I had bubble taunt, it would probably have been fine. Unfortunately, I used it previously, so I am going to die here at some point. But otherwise, this pull is just keeping on top of the kicks. And if it's not bolstering week, you definitely would live this, or you just need to plan accordingly, right? Like if I had planned accordingly, this is a 4 bolster double stack of bleed here. And I think I lived through that, but I died to the next one, right? Yeah, because they're going to do it again to me, and they're still 4 bolstered. Yeah, so I get hit by the 4 bolster double bleed and just die. But luckily, we kill them. It's just that's something to be aware of as a tank. If that ever happens there, be very, very careful. And then we go into the Forgemaster here. So a neat tip on this guy is that the target of the Blazing Aegis, the very first target, if they have a combat drop, so Shadow Meld, Vanish, Feign, I believe works, Invis works for mages, they will stop the entire Blazing Aegis cast because it's a shield that bounces from the first target to the other target. So if the first person dodges it, it stops. Exactly like Fenrir, except we didn't find a way to bait the first target. Right on Fenrir, it always targeted the furthest person. And this one didn't seem to have that same logic. It appeared to be more just pure random, but you know, if that changes, I'll of course update you guys. But that's like the biggest thing to do to mitigate damage on this boss fight is to have a rogue, for example, or multiple people with like Shadow Meld or whatever, just do that whenever they're the first target of the Blazing Aegis. So what would happen here? I think our Feral Druid does get one here to stop. Maybe it's not this exact one, but oh, here it is. So it's targeting, oh no, it's targeting the priest. So that's going to always go to the priest first. It's probably going to be the next one. Might of the Forge. Otherwise, just rinse and repeat, right? Be careful. This ring is LOS to short people. Dwarf, Goblin. We have a Goblin, Gnomes. All the short races get LOS'd by these stairs. It's fantastic. I love it. Anyway, so here it is. Yeah, there it is. So you can see it's targeting the Feral. The Feral will then Shadow Meld. Boom. No combo. No one will take damage. So you can do that with Shadow Meld. You can do that with Vanish, Feign, Invis. All those will work, and that just massively reduces the damage. So you're going to probably see in TGP, you're going to see all of those things stacked in this dungeon most likely, because it is definitely a very, very good, massive damage reduction on this boss fight. Makes it a lot easier, because then basically all the damage is just in that Forge hit there, which is pretty easy to like just rotate defensives on, especially if you don't have to defensive the actual shield thing. So otherwise, this boss is pretty straightforward. I don't commit Lust to it. Don't recommend it. I think we just committed Lust on one of the big trash pulls we did earlier, as well as Magmatusk, of course. So that's what we did there. Otherwise, we are going to start making a run. So this is variable depending on your patrols. So we have a bad patrol on the right and a good patrol on the left. So we're just going to pull the left pack. But if it's the opposite, right? If this patrol's over here and this patrol's like over here and this space is open to run into, just run over there. We mostly just want to skip these monstrosities. They're annoying. So these packs are completely interchangeable. Doesn't matter. We're basically just going to kill this pack as we run over towards the exit here. Just constantly moving, getting kicks on these lava flares. Moving. Step around the commander again. And we're going to snap these lava guys down. So basically just walk up. No one else hits them. Tank just hits them a little bit. I'm going to step down. Another neat thing, you can dodge the fall damage, a decent chunk of it, by stepping down onto that door. And instead of almost dying by hitting the ground, you only lose like a third of your HP. I walk a little wide here and I have no steeds left, which is great. So I get life gripped and we just add them to this pull here. Again, double wardens, pretty scary for tanks. So be aware that Blazing Slash is very nasty on Fort Week. So that's what you want to be aware of. And I'm always pointing towards the edge here because there is 2 sets of frontals here. There's big damage on the party during the Apex Blazewind cast. So that mob I think just has the least health. So it's just going to die first. Lava bearers have the most health, so they're going to die the last. And that's why we snap them down, because it's just so inefficient to cleave them up there alone. So because you can bring them down, we just bring them down here, cleave them with this 3-pack, make it a 5-pack, which is a much nicer number. You start getting good cleave value on it. You can get good funnel, whatever, AoE, whatever you want to call it. You can just get better value by doing a 5-pack instead of a 2 and a 3-pack, right? So a good way to reduce your pull count and go faster if your tank can, of course, live it here. Bolstered up wardens are a little spooky. This is going to get a double bolstered slash there. Look how much damage that is, right? That's really what you are scared about in these packs, is the wardens. This next pull, I think, also goes a little sketchy. The Lavamancers will put up that shield, and then they'll spawn a bunch of adds, and you want to try and kick that relatively quickly, because aggro is going to be a problem on them in a lot of cases, and them running around killing people is what you're worried about. It's not that those adds are dangerous if your tank picks them up, right? They're really not, assuming they go in your tank. The problem is the tank getting initial aggro on them, and you're going to see, I think we actually wipe because they start just smacking people, because we get one kick very late. We don't break these shields fast enough, and so we get one kick pretty early, but then this guy just is channeling, and there's a bunch of spawns going everywhere, and the autos on people combined with the incandescence here kind of wombo combos half the party. So what we end up doing here is we end up just kiting backwards. I do get aggro on all these guys, so it's no longer a problem, because, again, they're not really dangerous for the tank. The problems for the tank here is going to be, of course, the double wardens, and then the double lava bearers casting their lava bolt on the tank here. So we come back. There's only the incandescent damage from the bird now, because the lava spawns are all on me, and so it's much safer now. Again, warden slashes, lava bearer kicks are what you're worried about as the tank here. Otherwise, everyone else is more worried about their own safety, so the bird's probably going to die relatively quickly, and we're just cleaving everything down like this. Again, mob count looks inflated because of all these lava spawns that we let go off. Ideally, you don't let that many lava spawns go off, and then there's not really many running around, but, just be careful. Maybe positioning could be adjusted so that the ranged are, like, over here, and we face the mobs maybe this way or the other way, so that they have to run through the tank to actually get through everyone else. That could be helpful. But in general, just aggro is really going to be the problem on those new mobs. And then you get to Warlord Sargha, who has been definitely a pug killer for sure. So the gold puddles, you'll notice, spawn very early in the fight. So you can go and get yours relatively early on. So I'm going to go and get mine after this first frontal. And one thing to note, so there's a weak aura here. I can drop that in the description that shows you what you have, so you don't have to mouse over it every time. And so basically, you can now cast all of them while moving. They will give you a curse. The curse can be dwarfed, of course. If you have a curse dispel like we do, it can be curse dispelled. If you have dragons can dispel it on a 1-minute cooldown. And basically, you can time the cast on it while she's still casting her shield, and of course you can move to reposition it. The only spooky one is the charge, of course. All of the others are relatively easy to get off right as the shield goes up, so I'll show you that timing. You can also carry multiple gold piles, so if I wanted to, I could have picked up both these gold piles here, and I would have had 2 weapons, assuming you don't get a duplicate. I believe you can't get 2 of the same weapon. If you do, it just kind of eats the weapon, so be aware of that. Otherwise, I'm just going to bring it over to this Ember. We're just going to hodge it over here and just cleave it down, but focusing the boss. You can also CC these if you spawn, like if you bait a spawn like really far away, you can just keep it CC'd the whole fight, which is nice as well. But if you ever get one close, not a big deal. And you see, boom, I'll rewind. Basically, the Magma Shield goes off, and once it's like half done its cast here, you can just start your channel now. And as you see, I can move with it, and it's going to break like insta boom. People are done channeling in 2 seconds. We took like 1 tick of damage. Watch these swirlies. I believe they also fixed the bug where the swirlies would happen during this phase. And already you're seeing gold piles spawn again. So you can already just start being ready for the next shield. Your goal here, again, you don't want to sit in that lava phase for very long at all. You want to make sure that you end that phase ASAP. And so you're going to see again, right, we're going to get close to that Magma Shield, right? It's going to cast in a second here, and we're all going to ramp up our weapons. I think it's like 3 weapons plus a little bit breaks the shield, And so I'm just going to bubble here because I have the charge, boom, charge, but it's already broken. 1.3 seconds, because you can just pre-cast your items when the boss is like halfway through her Magma Shield cast. And then as you're pre-casting, just look at where the first swirly spawned and move out of it while you're casting and just insta-break that shield. So very, very useful here. Otherwise, Curse Spell is pretty useful to reduce the overall damage on this boss fight, but definitely not mandatory with the nerfs to have this not be stacking like it did previously, and then just a damage nerf. So that's nice as well. So anyways, this is it, guys. Hopefully it does help you out in Neltharus. If it does, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like it, including advanced Mythic Plus guides for every single dungeon in Season 2 and beyond. If you have any questions, feel free to drop those down in the comments below, or come stop by my Twitch channel at Tactics and ask me there. As always, big thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. I appreciate everything you guys do, and thanks all of you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.